All of you. I'm, Good morning. I'm very happy to be here. When your principal first asked me to be the chief guest, I refused because I don't like being part of formal functions. I'd rather have dialogues with my students rather than stand on the stage and give a long speech. But then I thought maybe I should go there because, this is a college of girls. And girls' education, I think, is very, very important. And much of my research has been on women's education. And the function began with a quote from Dr. Abdul Kalam, which spoke of inspired teachers as being very important for the society. And what I saw today, I think, embodies that, it is this college and the kinds of awards that you're winning, I think, manifests that particular truth that Dr. Abdul Kalam spoke about. You have achieved so much. You have won so many prizes. You have gone to so many places and interacted with other students. And you must be having a wonderful team of teachers because every time the announcements were made, I think the teachers got the highest claps. So the teachers must be wonderful. So I congratulate the teachers, the management, and the principal, I think, for achieving the kind of students that I see today. Women's education has had a long history in our society. It begins in the 19th century, which is the century of social reforms. It was in that century that the early schools were started. And if you look at Mangalore itself, the first women's schools was started by the Basel Mission, and that was started in the 1840s. But women's education, the history of women's education goes back to the last decades of the 18th century, and it starts with the coming of the missionaries. Later, of course, Indians themselves took up the project of educating women. What does education do for women? I think education opens up many doors for us. Education opens the doors of our home and leads us out into the world. Education gives us many knowledges. Education gives us many friendships. Education makes us, empowered. Education also allows us to go out in the world, earn our own living, to meet with people, to interact with people, and to know about what is happening in the wide world. But education also brings very many difficulties because education opens up doors, but it also does not allow us to cross certain doors. We know that these doors are there. We know that there is a whole world waiting out there. But then there are certain restrictions laid down by our society, by our communities, which do not allow us to cross these thresholds. And very often we might feel disheartened. We might wonder, why are we educated if the possibilities of education cannot be explored to the full? And this is an experience, I think, that all women have experienced. And whenever we have these kinds of problems, I think one of the ways in which we can gather courage is to go back to the history of education in our own societies or in our own country. I think I'll give you the history of two women educationists of India who were immensely courageous and because of whom we are here today receiving the kinds of education that we are receiving and doing the kinds of things that we are doing. I don't know if you know that yesterday was Savitribai Phule Day. Savitribai Phule was the wife of the social reformer Jyotiba Phule. And she, along with another woman, that is Fatima Sheikh, started a school for Dalits and women. And in that sense, Fatima Sheikh is said to be the first woman teacher of India. I don't think that is true because there are other teachers, women teachers who preceded her. But what is very unique to Fatima Sheikh and Savitribai Phule is that they opened a school for Muslim girls, for Dalit girls, and for the girls who had never had access to education till then. And that was something that their society did not accept. They started the school in Pune. And Pune was a place where there was a very strong orthodox belief that women should not be given education. According to the Brahminical Hindu texts, it was believed that if women were given education, they would become widowed. Educated women, if a woman was educated or she could read and write, then she would lose her husband. It was also the fear that once a woman learned to read and write, she would start writing letters. And who knows to whom she's going to write these letters. The other belief was that an educated woman's husband, whatever he ate would turn to worms. Yes? And then in that age itself, it was believed that if a woman was educated in subjects like the sciences, then she would not be able to bear children. It was also believed that women have smaller brains than men, and therefore women cannot study difficult subjects like sciences. And that I think all of you have disproved here, because many of you have got in the 90s, scored in the 90s in the sciences and in those difficult subjects that were once thought as unfit to be learnt by women. So when Fatima Sheikh and Savitri Bai Phule started their school in 1849, there was a huge backlash against them. When they went to their school, people used to throw stones, cow dung, mud at them. So what they did was they wore an old sari, old dress when they went to school. They carried another sari with them, and in the school they changed their clothes, because on the way they would be pelted with stones and mud. So this was the kind of difficulty that they faced in their schools. And today when we think of learning, yes, our certificates show how intelligent we are. Our certificates show how hardworking we are. And our certificates show our capacities to score in the 90s, 80s, the marks that we get. But for Phule and his wife, education was called as the Tritiya Ratna, that is the third eye. And education was supposed to provide a critical perspective on one's society. And that, I think, is the greatest gift that education can give us. That we open up our eyes and we look at our society and we develop a critical perspective on our society. And the fact that this kind of an education worked is shown by one of the essays written by a student of Savitri Bai Phule's school. She was called Mukta Bai, and she belonged to one of the lowest castes in Maharashtra, that is the Mahar caste. The Mahars are the lowest even in the Dalit hierarchy. And at the age of 11, she wrote an essay which was published in 1855 in a journal called as AnnualDay, which was published by missionaries. And here she writes about the kinds of oppressions that Dalit women have faced. And she concludes this essay by saying, education is the greatest route to freedom. Education provides us a way out of the oppressive system of caste hierarchy. Education is what that can release us from this oppressive hold of caste hierarchy. So this was the result of Savitri Bai Phule School. And I hope today also this will be the result of the education that we receive. Education also, in a sense, I think in India, education is very important for us to kind of intermingle with the many communities and religions that we have. So I myself was educated all my educational life up to my postgraduate level in Christian institutions. And this education, I think, made me, opened up my world to an entirely different religion. I have very close friends among Christians. I have visited their homes, I have eaten in their homes, I have attended their weddings, and now I attend their children's weddings. And therefore, Christianity for me is kind of correlated with my own religion. And for me, I think one of the most inspiring gods would be Christ, and the Christ as a merciful God. When my son was to go to school, I sent him to a Muslim school, that is Presidency School, because he was born in 1996, and that was the decade which began with the murder of the Staines missionary family, in an Australian missionary family. They were killed in Orissa because they were thought to be converting people, and it ended with the Godhra incident. So that was the decade when we started thinking about the kind of religious clash that was happening in India. And that was for me deeply disturbing. And I thought that if I were to send my son to a Muslim school or a Muslim managed school where predominantly the students were Muslims, at least he would come into close contact with Muslim friends, with Muslim religion, and therefore maybe he would not become part of the Islamophobic society that I saw was being born in the India, which in my own childhood was not so. Therefore, schools are very important because it allows us to form close friendship, intimate bonds with people of all religions, all communities, all castes who come together in these schools. And that is why when the hijab row broke out, one of the things that deeply saddened me was that after that, I think many Muslim girls were withdrawn from the school and they were sent to Muslim-only schools. And I felt that what was happening in our educational institutions was something that was a miracle. That is, people from different religions were coming together there. Friendships were being formed, and therefore, any attempt at developing or fostering an Islamophobic society would be, curtailed because of these friendships. And therefore, I would say, let us go. I mean, the school is a great space. It is a space where all of us come together. It is a space where we can have dialogues with each other. It is a space where we can form friendships and form friendships across religions and communities. And that is a very valuable space which we must nurture and protect with all our might. The second woman I'm going to speak about was again another woman who was born in the 19th century. She was born in 1880, and her birthday, 9th of December, is celebrated as Rokeya Shekhawat Day in Bangladesh. She was born in the erstwhile Bengal, which was part of India, and she was born to a family of very rich zamindari Muslims. And her father was well educated, he could speak many languages, but he did not want to send his daughters to school. In spite of that, her brother Ismail educated her at home and taught her English and Bengali because their mother tongue was Urdu. At the age of 18, she was married to a man who was 38 years old, and she was his second wife. That is, after his first wife died, she was married to him. He was working in the British colonial administrative system, and he was very progressive. So he gave freedom to his wife to improve her English and Bengali, and he also encouraged her to write. And she is one of the very well-known writers in Bengali. Today also her texts are prescribed in colleges and schools. And one of her most famous books is called as Sultana's Dream. In this book, she speaks of a feminist utopia. And she speaks about a place where women are rulers, where women are scientists, where women have used solar energy, where women are engineers, and instead of a zenana, there is a mardana. Okay, so in that, she builds a feminist utopia called as Ladyland. And all the men are in the mardana, and the women are free to roam about in the city. This is a feminist utopia. An utopia, as you know, is an impossible place, but that, I think, is one of the very early feminist texts of our times. She too started a school for girls in Calcutta. After her husband died in 1909, with 10,000 rupees that she inherited from him, she started a school in Calcutta for Muslim girls, and this was the first school for Muslim girls in Calcutta. She ran it for 24 years. She went from home to collect students to come to these schools. So here we have two examples of, I think, very courageous women who worked towards women's education. And if today so many of us are sitting here as students, teachers, professors, it is because we had this great-great-great-grandmothers who opened the doors of education to all of us. And I think whenever we feel that our education is not allowing us to do the kinds of things that we want to do, we should remember these women and think of the many barriers that they faced in surmounting the society and establishing the schools that they set up and opening an entire world for women. I think today women are much better off. All of us, there are so many of you here, and I myself is a representative of the fact that this region is a highly educated region, and this region is also, the education is open to both men and women. But even then, as women, I think still today we face certain problems. Maybe we will not. Suppose some of you want to go to a distant place in India to continue your higher education. Maybe there will be a barrier and they say no. If you want to do higher education, you have to be in Bangalore. Some of you may be told that maybe you should get married first and then think of education. Some of you might get, so many of you are so bright. And if you get a scholarship or fellowship to go abroad, maybe that will be a barrier. So we still face problems. You might be highly educated, highly trained, and then you might not be able to enter into a profession and earn your own living. But I think today we have a society that supports us. I speak of the many fellowships and scholarships that your own institution is providing for you. And I think these fellowships and scholarships are an indication of how friendly our society has become to the education of women. And in this region itself, there are so many Muslim institutions and other religious institutions that are especially catering to the education of women. In the post-graduation department itself, more and more girls from all religions are coming into my department. And it is wonderful to have children or girls or young women of very, many different religions coming into the classroom, because we can talk to each other, we can discuss things with each other, and we can open our worlds to each other. So modern education, institutional education has opened a whole new world for us. But I think we should also continue with the many knowledges that come from our own communities. For example, for you, maybe the art of cooking, the art of drawing mehendi patterns on the hands, the songs and stories that come from your grandmothers and mothers. Don't lose them. Hold on to them. Continue with them, because that is very important. That is a part of your origins. That is a part of your tradition. That is a part of your language. I'm an English teacher, and I would encourage all of you to learn English and know English, but I would also say that the first language for us is our mother tongues. And our mother tongues carry a whole world of knowledge. Don't reject that. Continue that, yes, because that keeps us rooted. And that is a very valuable knowledge. And I think we are immensely fortunate to be born in a country like ours, where there are so many religions, there are so many languages, there are so many cultures, there are so many food, culinary practices, that it's a very enriched society that we live in. So let us continue with that. Let us form friendships across communities and societies. We have lived for centuries with each other. If you look at the Western history, you will find that when the Catholic Church split into the Protestant and the Catholic Church, there were such huge battles and people were burnt because in the name of heretics. But we have lived together for centuries, and many of the major religions were born here or came here. So Christianity came to India even before it went to Europe. Islam came here at the time of the Prophet himself. So we have welcomed these religions, we have coexisted with these religions, and we have learned from each other. And now it's very difficult sometimes to kind of separate each other. For example, any festivity or festival or celebration worthy of its name today will have biryani in it. And biryani is a Muslim dish, yes? But we have made it our own. So these kinds of seepages have happened. And this is what makes our society special. And this is something that we have to protect, cherish, and hold on to and fight for. So I wish all of you all the very best. There are so many bright faces. There are so many intelligent faces here. I hope some of you come to the university and do your postgraduate studies. I hope all of you go on to do your higher studies. I hope those of you who want to go on to profession may find it easy to go on into a profession. I hope you become empowered mothers, because as mothers, we have a lot of power, yes? And therefore, I think just as enlightened teachers are necessary for a society, enlightened mothers are also necessary for a society. And when I look at you, I have the belief that you will be enlightened mothers, and that you will be the forerunners of a great society to come. Thank you very much.